All right, and welcome back to a Thursday night cinema. Uh, we're going to be talking about possibly one of the greatest movies of the '90s. We're trying to see what is going to happen here, but we'll be right here with our co-host Vern here in just a second. Going on, and we'll get going. There we go. Hope everyone is having a wonderful, wonderful Thursday night, and we're going to be talking here with our co-host Vern and get it going. All right, and welcome back to a Thursday night cinema. Tonight we're going to be talking about one of the greatest, as voted on by you, the fans and social media followers, uh, Tombstone. So, to kind of bring everybody back in, over the last couple of months, I've been running I guess, the greatest movies battle, and I've done the '80s, I've done the '90s, doing the 2000s. Well, in the '90s, the movie that is on right behind my co-host Vern, Tombstone, as voted on by you guys, was voted as the greatest movie of the '90s. And we're talking about, we had Forrest Gump, we had Rudy. I mean, we had lots of great '90s movies in that tournament, I guess is what you would call it. And this is what the band. I mean, lots and lots of people said if Tombstone doesn't win, this tournament is rigged.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
So let me ask you this question: why do you think they voted? Hopefully, we'll get to hear from some of them here in a few moments. But why do you think most of the fans voted for this movie?
um, I'd say it's twofold. The story, but definitely the cast. Like this is one of the greatest cast like ever put together, hands
Yeah,
down. Each one of these dudes and their performances, man, was solid throughout the whole movie.
yeah, I agree. I mean, we know, and it's, if not one of the most, it probably is one of the most quotable movies due to Val Kilmer and Doc Holliday. I'm sure that has something to do with a lot of white people voting. You're right, the cast. But before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, I know this movie is probably historically inaccurate to some degree, but we're not here to talk about his. We're here to talk about the movie itself. So, you know, and if we really want to break it down, a lot of movies that are supposed to be historically accurate are not to a certain degree, but we'll get into that later. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. This movie, I was in Panama. I was stationed in Panama when this movie hit the theaters, and so we got it after the masses in the States did. So it had already been out, I believe, 2 or 3 months. And just I got, back then we didn't have Facebook or whatnot to talk back and forth about what was going on. So calling home to my family, and they're like, "Oh, you need to see Tombstone. It's great." Where were you at? Do you remember where you were at when you first saw this?
I was at Tinker in Oklahoma. Um, I saw it. I think we all got together and went and saw it after work one night. But yeah, I was at Tinker when it came out.
There was
Or
like our
when
flight.
I saw it, I was at Tinker.
Our flight we had off. It was our 3 day. We were on one of our 3 day breaks. You know how the whole
Yep.
Panama schedule goes. Well, we were on one of our 3 day when it came out, and I mean our entire flight went to see it. And how dudes sit in movie theaters. It's dude, couple seats, dude. I
Yeah.
mean, we literally took up the entire almost theater because our whole flight was there. But yeah, I mean, that's how nostalgic. I mean, that's what I can remember about this movie, and why it's so great is I can remember where I was, what I was
Yep.
doing, and who was there. And you're right, man. And to get back onto the movie, this movie's ensemble cast you know, from Val Kilmer, Michael Behan, Kurt Russell, Powers Booth, Sam Elliott, the greatest, one of the greatest actors to ever grace our presence, in Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
You know, so lots of wonderful actors in this, and yeah, I knew the moment that I put this on this list, there was no doubt in my mind, at least it would get to the finals. I didn't know it would win by as many votes as it won by, but I mean, it wasn't even a contest. Even when it got to in the finals against Forrest Gump, it blew Forrest Gump away.
Yeah, there are just certain movies that it doesn't matter what you place it up in. I mean, because you think about it, in the 90s, man, that was the start of, you know, some of the great, I mean, Blade, you know, Blade dropped, you had the Spider-Man. Just, I mean, there was so much stuff that came out during that time period that could have easily, you know, that you could easily look at it and go, man, these were great movies, great movies, great movies. But like you said, when you put them all side by side and you see Tombstone, like automatically, like you're voting Tombstone. Like it doesn't. This was one of those movies that is, I mean, essentially flawless. You know.
Yeah. At one point, it was up 100. At one point, when I was counting, it was up 100 votes over certain movies that it went up against. Obviously, this movie is about Wyatt Earp and the OK Corral gunfight, as well as the vendetta ride, if you will, of Wyatt Earp after his brothers were killed. I shouldn't have to have spoilers. This movie's been around for a while, but just in case, this is what this movie's about. To get back to what you said, what about the cast? What did you like about this cast?
Wow. First off, the way they all settled into their roles, you know, it just seemed like they were natural to this time period. You know, it wasn't like when you watch it, you don't look at it and you're like, you know, they're trying to stuff a bowling ball in a ballerina shoe. You know, they just seemed organic, especially Val Kilmer, man. I mean, I was blown away that he was not even nominated for an Oscar based off of this role. You know, he's got the tuberculosis thing, you know, and I mean, his coughing, just the whole thing was amazing. Kurt Russell's continuous, just eagle-eyed scowl throughout the whole thing, man. Like it, and then Sam Elliott, the older brother that, you know, wants to do right. Is, you know, it just, I mean, everything. Of course, Sam Elliott looks like he should be in something like this in everything he does, you know, but I mean, just each of them earned that legendary status that they are given now from this movie.
Oh, yeah,
they could have
absolutely
all been nominated for an Oscar in this movie.
Yeah. Man, I really, yeah, you nailed it on the head, and I'm sure the majority of people who watch this movie can't understand why Val Kilmer, Kurt Russell, all of them didn't win some kind of award for their portrayal in this movie. Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think again, you had so many good actors, but you also had Charlton Heston and some great, you know, old Western movie actors. And I mean, you nailed it when you said it. It felt so organic, and basically what it, you know, it is. I mean, it takes us back to the Clint Eastwood movies, the John Wayne movies, where everything felt organic. You know, we had some great 80s Westerns, you know, Silverado off the top of my head was another great, but it didn't seem forced, like you said. It just, everything fit there from their actions, and again, from Bill Paxton to you know, Sam Elliott playing the brothers.
Yep.
You could almost feel that it was true, like they really were brothers by the way they acted.
Yep. Yeah. This was one of those movies that you knew that there was not going to be a sequel to.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You were like, man, can we make something up? Can we get all of these guys back together and do something, or a spinoff? Like everybody, I hoped that
Yeah.
Doc wouldn't have died, you know, and like we would have heard more about Doc Holliday, or even just giving us a period piece on him in between, or a story about how he and Wyatt met, like just anything. Give us more of these group of guys doing this. I mean, because you mentioned like the previous shows, you know, I'm a huge Eastwood Western fan, you know, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, Hang 'em High dethroned Dr. No, James Bond's movie. Like Dr. No was dominating, and Eastwood dropped Hang 'em High, and that surpassed that. I mean, for it to even, for us to be able to sit here and say like this movie compares to that, it's, you know, the year before this, what was it? The Unforgiven came out, and I mean, like, I don't ever, like, when I'm like, man, I want to watch a Western, I don't even think of The Unforgiven, you know. It's not that it was a bad movie.
No,
It's one of those movies
actually,
that seemed forced.
I actually did watch Unforgiven the other day, but
it seems forced. Like it seems like they tried to take a great cast, push them together, and some of them did not mesh into that role, you know. But these guys, man, it's from the main characters down to the last cowboy. Like it was phenomenal.
Again, you again behind you got Billy Zane, you got Jason Priest. I mean, just the amount of actors that were in this to give us one of the greatest tales. Now, you know, again, I talk to you history buffs. There's going to be people that say that Wyatt and them were the bad guys and the Cowboys were the good guys. Any way you look at it,
no, they weren't.
Getting ready for the show, and I mean, I've read, you know, I'm a history buff and I love Westerns and I love Old West history. Just, you know, that came from my dad. But if you go back and you read Tombstone had two papers, if you will. It's almost like what we have now, where you have the two sides, if you will, and I'm trying not to get political, but you had like two papers in Tombstones, and one was for the Cowboys, and one was for obviously Law and Order. And you know, you would get your story of, and that you see it kind of play out there, where after the gun battle with in the OK Corral, where they're parading them through the McClowrys and Clantons through the streets that they're dead, you know, and they're saying murdered in the streets of Tombstone. Well, that's how they portray even Behan. He's like, I'm going to arrest you for murder, and Wyatt's like, I don't think I'm going to let you arrest us today. So, you know, there was always that battle, and I could almost see, you know, the side where the Cowboys were bringing tons of money, and I mean tons. That's how Tombstone thrived, was because of the Cowboys and the Faro games and the gambling and everything. So, you know, those people probably, you know, there were probably sides, because especially the owners of the inns and the bars and the saloons, or whatever you want to call it, they were making money hand over, like they said, hand over fist, because of the Cowboys.
Yeah. And I mean, let's be honest. If the biggest dog in the block is, you know, on your porch all the time, you're not going to have to worry about anything else. Mm-hmm. But I mean, unfortunately, you can't let, you know, and you see it, like, you can't let these guys just continue to disrespect people or just disrespect the law. And I mean, to say these guys are the bad guys, they did. Wyatt, I'm going off the movie, not the history and all of this stuff. Wyatt did everything he could to stay out of this. You know, like this movie is the definition of poking the bear.
Poking the bear, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they got what they asked for. They woke him up, and they found out, like, hey, the legend of Wyatt Earp is real. And you know, he came and brought it with him.
You bring that up. You're right. Wyatt was doing everything he could. I mean, he's like, no, I don't want to be lawman. He told the mayor. He told he told everybody. And I
But he got
understand
off
why
the
more,
train.
you know, uh, uh, his brothers did what they did. But even at that point, he pulled him in the. He's the middle brother scolding the older brother and the younger brother about you don't want to do this because it's not going to end well. And Virgil and Morgan, and then one that still blows me away to this day. It probably was true, but the wives got mad at Wyatt.
Yeah.
And I never, to this day, I still don't understand. So if there's any history buffs or you know, Old West history buffs out there, let me know why they blamed Wyatt on this occasion. But oh man, yeah. Again, history aside, and factual history, I'm sure they pulled. I mean, they did pull a lot of it, and they Hollywooded it up. We know that. Yeah. Everybody knows that they Hollywood stuff up. But man, it just. I think when they did kind of Hollywood it up, you couldn't. I mean, you could tell, but you couldn't tell, if that makes sense. You know, you're trying to get to the movie, and obviously Kevin Costner and Dennis Quaid and them did another one that was probably a little bit more on the factual side, and yeah. Nothing against that movie. Kevin Costner again did a great job in Wyatt Earp and all of them as well. What makes it? Obviously, and I'm gonna answer my own question. What makes this movie though so quotable? Is it? I mean, because there's a lot of great lines, and we know it's Val. But why do we quote it so much?
I think because all of their lines, like all the quotable lines, everything you hear, they were like the definitive one-liners, you know, because you got Arnold, you know, I'll be back, you know, and stuff like that. But these were all, I mean, and I guess they were real organic throughout the deal. It wasn't like, you know, there was a pause and then there was, you know, like some dramatic music and then you drop a line. You know, it was they just kind of flowed and they fit. Like I said, there wasn't a pause. Like these lines were all dropped with purpose at a certain moment, right, which we tied them to it. You know, like when Val, you say, you know, you're no Daisy, you immediately see him talking to Rico dying, you know. I'm your Huckleberry, like, you know, like instantly you see him challenging Wyatt and Wyatt telling him, you know, you're drunk, go home, you know, and then Doc getting up out of the chair with his gun behind his back. Like all of these one-liners, they were like mic drop one-liners leading into something. Yeah. So you can't forget moments like that, man.
I find them relatable though, like yeah. to even today, because it's probably like, I mean, but I find them like if somebody says something, you know, even in the military, I'm your, you know, after that, literally everybody on flight or in a position, it was like, I'm your Huckleberry, I'll do it, you know, or
yeah.
I still use, and it's probably one of the least quotable, but I still, yeah, I'm an oak, all right. And if you know what I'm talking about, he's like, Doc and him are talking in the bar, and he's like, I stand corrected, Wyatt, you're an oak. And then the next day he goes off and chases her, and he's like, yeah, I still use that with my wife to this day. And I find she's like, I have never seen this movie, I don't know what you're talking about. So I had to literally, and now she understands why I say, yeah, I'm an oak, all right. So, but yeah, I find them relatable, and I think, and you said it, you know, Arnold's got one-liners, Stallone, everybody gave us one-liners, but those were felt forced at certain times to try to keep the movie going, where these were, I mean, you know, I'm your Huckleberry, and then right into the, you know, I'm doing what we're doing. The scene is going. I'm going to have a duel with, you know, one of the best duels to involve a pistol and a drinking cup ever going on right behind you. And that's what I'm talking about. The, you know, here Wyatt is worried about, oh, Doc's going to go off, and here comes the sarcasm from Doc. I'm just going to play with the cup. And that's what makes it a good movie to me.
Yeah, and I mean, you see it like Wyatt's like, okay, I'm gonna have to cut down 3 or 4 of these folks, but I'm not worried about the dudes in front of Doc because he's gonna lay these dudes down. Like he's having a sarcastic conversation with his girlfriend. Like they're having like some Batman and Robin banter back and forth about this dude, and he's really upset. But Doc's just like, he's got that look like you're messing up my drinking and my poker game, man. Like, I need you to go sit down, And
so let me ask you this: how true to life do you think? I mean, obviously, we don't know if Doc. I'm sure there's documents and stories and things that probably said he was sarcastic but do you? I mean, now if you were to go back in time because of what we've seen and you met Doc Holliday, you're expecting Val Kilmer right away or Kurt Russell right away for Wyatt Earp.
Yeah. I don't know. I know.
Hard to say.
I know. Having gone to Tombstone, Doc's line at the end of the fight at the OK Corral, where there's banter between him and I can't remember which one of the characters it was.
It was one of the McClowrys.
Yeah, and he tells him, I got you now, Doc, you son of a bitch, or something along those lines. You son of a bitch, Doc, I got you, something like that. And Doc says, you're a daisy if you do. So they had papers like hanging up and that line was in the paper that was published days after the fight at the OK Corral. So there are like some of the things that you wouldn't somebody were like, yeah, that's historically true. You'd be like, man, whatever. Like I saw it in a newspaper, and so I don't know what else would be. This would somebody do this? There's, Doc had a reputation of being extremely, extremely confident, cocky, sarcastic. But he was also, like they say he was also really reserved to kill somebody, pull his guns. But if he had to, you were done. Like there was nobody better than this dude. So
I could literally see the pistol. Maybe not. It maybe wasn't with Johnny Ringo, but I could see like that happening with him at some point in his lifetime. Like you said, he's cocky, he's confident. So that is something that I would absolutely picture him doing. All right, so we get to the OK Corral. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've seen this, they're all standoff. Nobody wants to fight. I mean, at least at first, nobody wants to fight. Since you said you were there, I wonder if he really did. I mean, this is no bullshit. Doc started this fight. At least in the movie, Doc started this fight. Oh, yeah. With the wink to one of the Clanton boys. Do you think that, I'm sure, I don't know what the paper said. Now I want to go to Tombstone to see this. What do you think that was really, because I know Virgil really did. All he wanted to do was just to de-arm them and get them out of town. They didn't want to fight.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't real. I could tell you, he was here in San Antonio at a convention in Austin at a convention some years ago and did a panel, and somebody asked him about the wink, and he said, no, it was improvised. Like it just seemed like it fit as a silent, antagonistic move, and that everybody loved it and it worked. So that's, yeah. He said no, but he said that was a complete improv on his part. And if you look at it, like you said, like you got to wonder, like, was this dude really like this? Doc Holliday was a dentist, man. Yeah. The dude was a dentist, So everything he did with Wyatt was because he loved Wyatt like a brother. Yeah. But he perfected his skill because he wanted to go out and enjoy life and not be bothered, and take care of himself. But
tuberculosis.
Yeah.
And that obviously we in other movies we've talked about, there's been, death sentences, and that's a death. Once you got tuberculosis, you're going out west to try to clear, to calm it down, but it's a death sentence. So I think he was trying to live life.
Yeah.
and let it to as long as he could. Man, I that's obviously, I mean, we've seen many shows, you know, from back in the 50s where they had Kurt Douglas and Bill Lancaster and them do a fight at the OK Corral, but as many of the ones I've seen, I felt like this one felt more correct to me, and I'm trying to say that without us trying to talk about historical, but it felt from some of the books that I've read that they tried to nail it to a T of what exactly the positions where they were, to down to, like you said, and I wasn't aware that he had said you're a daisy if you do, so that tells me they did a lot of research to get this fight right.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, and just the spacing between these dudes, man. Like, when you look at it, you're like, yeah, man, I don't see, you know, I don't see it being any different than that, you know. And when you go to the town, I mean, it still looks the same, you know, dirt road. Like, it's you're staying in a Western style. You're staying in a Western style town, man. They still do all the, you know, the photography with the old cameras and all that. It's crazy, you know, that everybody stays in character is as well as they do. And if that setting is how things were, none of the fights that you see in this movie are more than, you know, 15 yards apart. Like, it's crazy how close it is. And to get, you know, what was it, 8-9 guys in the OK Corral together in that area and shoot, you better be spot on or quick to dodge, you know, because you're not going anywhere.
We know how, for the most part, inaccurate some of those 6-shooters were, and I mean, obviously, lawmen and even the Cowboys, I'm sure, filed their sights down and got it to where they could be quick on the draw and as accurate as they possibly can. But, you know, even in the heat of things, you saw it took. I mean, with Ike in the building, I mean, they're literally, he's out hanging out a window that's 3 feet from Wyatt and Doc, and they're missing him. So, man, I can't even imagine what they're going through in their mind and this thing going down. So, it's not something I would ever. I hope to never be in that kind of situation if I have a choice. I hope not. What makes us so enamored with Old West? Like you just said, we just talked about Clint Eastwood. We talked about some of the old Western movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, up to now. Like we talked about 1883 and things like that. Why are we so enamored with the Old West?
I feel like you got a sense of, it's like that definition of being your own person.
Right.
Like, those guys go out there. I mean, yeah, you had the law and you had all of that stuff, but you had to be your own man. You had to take care of yourself. You had to find your way, and you were just kind of free to do that. You know what I mean? Like, you just, roaming was like something folks did. You know, like, I got a horse. What are you gonna do? You know, I'm gonna ride up to San Francisco. You know, oh, okay, how long is that? You know, that's like 15-day ride, and you just go. You know, sleeping under the stars. You know, just doing your thing. Just, yeah, you had to, you know, get a job and do stuff like that, but it didn't seem like it was, you were as tied to that life, you know, the 9-to-5 type as you are now.
Yeah. Getting down to it, what did you like best? I mean, we've talked about the cast, we've talked about the OK Corral. What did you like best about the movie, though? What was it that just said, this is the definitive movie for me?
The whole story. I mean, this is one of those movies where, I mean, from the start, Wyatt gets off the train and you know what's going on. Like, he tells the dude, right, the two gentlemen to stop him, and he's like, yeah, don't want it. You know, and they're like, what? I don't want the job. I'm retired. You know, oh, well, you know, this is, no, I'm retired. We're going to go out. We're going to do that. And he tells him he's going to go to Tombstone, and he's like, oh, you know, a person can make a lot of money out of there. And then the other guy that's with him says something to the effect of, you know, I don't know a lot of wealthy men with, I know a lot of wealthy men with guilty consciences. And Wyatt tells him, well, I already got the guilt. I might as well have the money too.
Yeah.
So, you know, like from the start, he doesn't want to be a cop anymore. And he just wants to go live his life and get rich. Like, that's this dude's plan, and it's laid out. But then right after, well, scratch that. Before that, they talk about the Cowboys and how the Cowboys have made their way out to the West, and they're, you know, essentially an infestation.
Right.
And then, you know, you got the great retiring lawman and his family, and the two of them meet, and they meet quick, and there's your plot line, and it just goes from there. So, I mean, it's you never get lost. You, even the low points, you're like, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like even the low points, you're not like, all right, you know, like, no, you're the whole time you're waiting for that next thing to happen. It keeps you engaged throughout the movie. And that's how I feel like people want to see movies. You want to be engaged throughout the movie. You don't want to, you know, I remember seeing the third Matrix movie, and when Trinity dies for like 35 minutes, I was like, Jesus, please just, you know, hurry up and die so we can move on. Like, it's not like that at all in this movie, you know, like, it just is, I just want it more and more and more and more all the time. So.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier where I like this is kind of one of those movies where you don't want it to end. You want a sequel, or you want you know, and I do that. I've done this in a lot of movies where I've, like Braveheart. I still think they're going to save William Wallace at the end. I still think they're going to rescue him, even though I know the outcome. And same with, you know, I never want Doc to die, obviously, because he's one of the greatest characters. I think for me, what I liked most about this movie, though, is up to the point I never knew about the Vendetta ride. You know, we studied, we learned about the OK Corral. We knew that the Clantons, McClowrys, and the Earps were involved, in Doc Holliday. I never knew, and this was my first introduction into the Vendetta ride. Yes, they absolutely Hollywooded it up, and showing some of the things that he did during the Vendetta ride, but it was you know, just to know that he's like, you know, you done my family. Now I'm, you know, hell's coming with me. You tell him I'm coming, and hell's coming with me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I liked. You know, like I said, how I felt about the realism of the shootout there in the OK Corral, and then for me, just the of seeing how he went after these cowboys in the Vendetta ride, and I loved every minute of it. And I think that was, to me, the you know, what made this movie. And you know, you nailed it as far as from one scene to the next. You know, it's, I mean, speaking of one behind you, you know, here Curly Bill is getting high off opium and everything, and I mean, if this doesn't happen, does this cause, you know, everything set up the stage for everything to happen this way? So if Curly Bill doesn't get opiumed up, does he kill Fred White in real life? You know, do these things happen that lead to this what is going on?
It was bound to happen.
Yeah.
It was bound to happen. If something,
Whether the Earps were there or
happen,
not, I think any lawman, it was going to happen. Is that? I didn't mean to cut you off.
So in real life, he didn't die like that night. He like lingered, you know. But this was, again, they Hollywooded it up, right? We talk about that. They Hollywood up a lot of things. Like, I mean, when you, I highly recommend, like, when your daughter gets older, take her to Tombstone. It's a good time, you know.
Right.
But the shootout at the OK Corral that we see didn't happen at the OK Corral. It happened near the photo store in an
Right. It
alley.
was in the back alley of the Corral.
Yeah. But they, you know, it was near there, and it's easy to say it was there because it's like right around the corner from there. All of this would have still led to it would have eventually led to that moment, because I see the Earps getting involved either way. So I mean, we'll take the movie. If even if they hadn't killed, you know, Fred here, and Fred, you know, rode off and retired somewhere, then the town wouldn't have had a lawman, and they still would have eventually stepped in, because Behan he's a cowboy puppet, like. So it's just I think they use this moment to bring a catalyst to get everything moving in the direction, you know, to keep the movie where we're talking about at that level the whole time. So
yeah, I mean, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, there's a lot of great books on Wyatt, and I mean, Wyatt wasn't a saint by any means, ladies and gentlemen.
He was barely literate.
Yeah, he was a thief and a rustler, and he'd done some bad things too. But I think, again, it's just this movie, and I'm not even going to ask the question, because I don't think there's anything bad about this movie. I mean, you know, some people might disagree by saying, you know, the accuracy and things. I get that, but that doesn't make it a bad movie. You know, if you're looking for true to life and real life, the History Channel, and there's some great documentaries on all of these people and everything that happened from Tombstone to the OK Corral to, you know, Doc and the Vendetta, right? There's lots of great documentaries. So I don't think there was anything bad. Like you said, the action was there. Everything was driven by certain scenes or certain lines, and I think, to me, and I guess 100, you know, when you're winning a contest by 100 votes, I think that says a lot about that a lot of people probably agree with the same track that we're on.
You know, like this scene here, you know, it's one of those lull moments, but boom, here comes, I mean,
he's like,
we're right back here. Now there's something happening. He asked the question, and he's, you know, I'm busy. You know, I'm busy. We're all busy, you know, and he drops that line, you know, there's a lot of people suffering while you all are getting rich around here. And you can see that right there. Virgil it just eats at him. And here we are. The next thing you know, he's got a badge, and Morgan's got a badge, and, you know, like, Wyatt's like, well, you better swear me in, and it's going down. But not one moment are you just, okay, they're playing pool, you know, this is where I'm going to go get my popcorn. No, you were, something
about to happen.
Yeah.
Something about since we're not going to talk, if they remade this movie today, would it still have the same effect that it did?
No.
I agree. No, not
at
no
all.
way, no how.
One of the best Westerns made, The Magnificent Seven. Mm-hmm. When that was remade, the cast for that was amazing, you know. But the movie, like, the original set such a high standard. Like, you can't remake this, you know. It's just, we've had movies when we did Total Recall, you know, that was like a sci-fi movie that was way up there. And then we got the up-to-date, you know, reboot, and I was just like, meh, you know. If they were to try to remake Tombstone, one, I don't think I would go see it. And two, I think that would be the consensus from the crowd that's our age and older,
Right.
the new guys would go see it and, be like, oh my God, I saw this new movie Tombstone. It was amazing. And you just be like, bro, this thing is almost, 30 years old now.
Yeah.
And it was done back in the day so much better. And this is a classic. It should definitely stay a classic and not be remade and left alone.
Please, Hollywood, leave this one alone. But I'm glad that you brought up Magnificent Seven because
they did some spin-offs, some prequels showing the leading up to this. I could get behind that, I could get behind that, but leave this alone. Because they talk about Virgil being a lawman. Like if they were to do something on that, what was Morgan doing before this? Doc Holliday, how did he go from being a successful dentist to, a gambler? I mean, a gambler back then was like the male version of a streetwalker. that was not a reputable profession. So I'd be interested to see something like that. But leave this alone.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And I'm glad you brought up Magnificent Seven because, like I said, we grew up Yul Brynner, Charles Bronson. That was our Magnificent Seven. But it got my wife to actually, because of the new. And I see where you're going. My wife's 10 years younger than I am. But she loved, she liked it, the new one until we watched the original. Then she's like, oh, I can see where you're. But it was great to get her to finally understand some of the stuff that we talk about, where why certain things should not ever be remade. But you're right with Magnificent Seven. I enjoyed the remake. Do I love it? I mean, you never know, but it won't touch the original.
No, it was enjoyable. But if you've seen the original in the back of your head, you're like, I mean, I think it was my dad that told me, he was like, anything with Charles Bronson or Steve McQueen should never be remade.
Yeah.
Period. And,
Bruce Willis, are you hearing me about Death Wish? Stop.
Come on, man.
Yeah, this is one that I will be glad that they never touch. If after I'm dead and gone, and my daughters are our age now, if they want to remake it, go ahead, have at it. But this is timeless. You're right. The fans from that did the voting, they showed it, and it was great to see. That was, again, out of all the ones I did, that one was the one that made bam, you literally just Tombstone, where certain ones we had, mixed, there was times where I was like, holy crap, this is going to come down to one vote or something like that. But this one, it was, and I think in that aspect, I don't know if we did the entire 90s with Tombstone add up to some of the other movies. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I mean, there's thousands of movies that I'd have to go through, and I don't have that much time. But I tried to pick some of the greatest movies of that era of the 90s.
Yeah.
And it successfully beat them all.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. Yeah, I can't. I was gonna say, I'd have liked to see this stack up against Top Gun, but I mean, that's the 80s. That's not even. That's late 80s, but it's not the 90s. I mean, as far as the 90s go, like when your poll shows that everybody could just be like, yeah, I can see this being the best movie, which goes back to the Academy Awards. Like, what were y'all watching that year? You know what I mean? Like, what were you watching? So this came out, Christmas of '93, Thanksgiving of '93. I know it was at the later year. I didn't see it until the following year after I'd finished school and everything, and PCS to Tinker, and I watched it, and then nothing for the Academy Awards, which I was blown away, and everything else, and I'm just like, what do y'all? What is a good movie to the experts. Like, am I just thrown off thinking this was a fantastic movie or what? And it just.
Well, they haven't changed their ways since this thing has started. So,
Not at all.
it's evident with some of the movies that we just literally see. Just because it's a superhero movie doesn't mean they're not putting good effort into their. I mean, some of the acting that I've seen lately in Spider-Man. I mean, maybe not best actor, but
Willem
cinematography and things like that, and best picture. Come on, you're telling me because 10 people went and watched Piano or whatever it was that beat Tombstone. I can't remember what it was. And
I think
millions of people went to watch Tombstone.
Yeah, I think Tyler, what was it? Tommy Lee won Best Supporting Actor, and everybody was like, "How was this better than what Val Kilmer did?" So, there have been some Marvel movies that have won some Academy Awards.
Oh, absolutely, they've won. Black Panther won, I think, music and cinematography and things of that. I think In-Game might have. I'm not.
The time period that those movies were out, those are very small, but I don't want to say they're not significant wins. They're not the big four: Best Actor, Best Actress, Supporting Actor, Supporting Actress. Willem Dafoe, man.
Oh yeah.
So he's always been one of my favorites. I mean, like way back in the day. But this latest iteration of Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin. And the fact that he had his helmet off the whole time and you could see him going through everything, like that was, if he is not nominated for something, I don't understand what people have to do.
I have never understood the Academy. Well, all right, we talked about Tombstone. You guys voted it as the best movie. I'm pretty sure I know what our scores are going to be, but as always, we close out the show with, what do you rate this movie?
Oh, this is a 10, easy 10. Like, this is an easy 10.
Absolutely. There's a 10 star, there 10 out of 10, whatever you want to do. And again, it goes to everything. It goes to music. It goes to actors. It goes to story. It goes to the cinematography. I mean, everything about this feels like and you nailed the word organic and real to me.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to nitpick, like you said, the unrealistic, handguns, like, because these dudes fired a lot of bullets.
Yeah.
A lot of bullets. They didn't have speed loaders back then, so there should have been some pausing. It just that if you had to nitpick, that would be the only thing. But that was a common thing throughout that time period. I think it was the mid '90s. Somebody was like, "Hey, man, look, these infinite 6-shooters. We gotta do something about that." So, but
the everlasting M60 belt.
Yeah. So if that's all you can come up with was like, "Hey, man, he shot 13 rounds out of a 6-shooter." That's it. Like,
yeah. Sorry. I'm not picking on that now.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. I think after I'm gonna have to do all the winners, or I'll have to do ultimate to find out if this truly. I mean, this could quite possibly be up there with In-Game and Iron Man and things of that nature as far as the
Iron Man was a complete movie as well. Like, it told a good story. And I got my my issues with it. Just little things like I didn't like the original. I didn't like Howard as Rhodey. I did not. Just you have to.
Well, nobody beats Don Cheadle in anything, but that's
another
story for another time.
And then there's the issue with Don Cheadle because he doesn't fit the mold of the character, because Rhodey was, essentially Tony Stark's bodyguard. He was a gigantic dude. But, I mean, he plays like, if I had to put both of them side by side, Howard and Cheadle and say, who looks more like an officer? Who looks more like the character that they've made this roadie to be? It's Cheadle, hands down. So I can't be mad with that. I can't see as complete and as awesome as I thought Iron Man 1 was. I'd still pick Tombstone over
I
Iron
would
Man.
definitely pick Tombstone as well.
Even Endgame, man. And then I look at it like this as well. Like, if you didn't have what you have now as far as technology, if you made those movies in 1993, could you do this? Could you produce this product?
I don't think so.
No, they could not.
No, not at all.
So I can't, and it's not, I can't blame them for it. Like, it's not my fault I got this stuff now, but even then, this is still a better movie all the way around, like all the way around, in my opinion.
Yeah. And nothing beats them walking down the street with the, man, that is just a scene that is burned and seared into your mind. I mean, when you think Tombstone, not only do you think of Val Kilmer, you immediately think of them walking down the street ready to head to where they're going.
Yeah,
getting ready to come up. So next week, we're going to be talking HBO Max series, Titans, based off Teen Titans and DC Comics. We haven't decided if we're doing the whole series or if we're going to break it down one season at a time.
Yeah.
You'll find out next week.
I mean, we could each season, like all the seasons. I
kind of want to break it down one season at a time. That's what I'm thinking. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. Teen Titans. It's a wonderful show. If you haven't checked it out, go to HBO Max. If you haven't, go check out Titans. It's not your PG, folks. It's pretty good. It is an adult themed show, but check it out. I highly suggest it. So that's what we're talking about next week.
Yeah, if you do watch it before we talk, and you haven't figured out you need to tell your kids to leave after Nightwing shows up, there's something wrong. And two, if you are not hooked after Nightwing's first words, something's wrong.
Yeah,
Period.
absolutely.
As soon as I saw that entrance and his first words, I was like, "Oh, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm watching this." So.
Absolutely. It's just from, again, and we'll talk more about it next week, but from casting to storyline, it's beautiful. And I can't wait to talk about it next week. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that has been Thursday Night Cinema. I'm your host, Dash. This is Vern, your co-host, and we enjoy talking to you every Thursday. Please let us know how we did. Hopefully, I won't have any problems. Apparently, YouTube and Star Wars don't like me when it comes to uploading this one, but this one will be uploaded, I hope, tomorrow, if you didn't catch it tonight, and you'll check it out. And again, we're here every Thursday. Let us know if there's something you want us to review. Love to do it. So until then, peace.
Take it easy, guys.
Later, guys.